Carbohydrates are a class of biomolecules. They are found all around in nature, and most of us are aware that they are found in our food. So we get energy from carbohydrate. But the carbohydrates are a class of compounds. So there's not only one carbohydrate, there are many carbohydrates, and their functions are a little bit different also. So I will show you three carbohydrates right now to introduce carbohydrates to you and show their functions also. They serve quite different functions. The first one, this is an image of starch in corn under polarized light. And starch molecules are used as a food for animals. We eat these starch. In rice we have starch, we eat rice and get energy from that. In corn we have starch, we eat corn and we get energy from that. So carbohydrates store energy. But this another carbohydrate here, this is cellulose, the cotton. You see, it has a lot of cellulose in it. And this is not for eating purposes. This is not for energy purposes. This is something which provides structure to a plant. And in the cell wall of the plant cells also there are cellulose. Cellulose is a kind of carbohydrate which provides structure. It serves as a structural component. So carbohydrate can store energy, they can serve as structural components. And the third one, very interesting, I think most of us will be aware of this molecule, what this is trying to portray. This is the DNA molecule. And in DNA molecule, we also have a carbohydrate called ribose. So ribose, and not ribose actually, one oxygen less than ribose. So 2-deoxyribose. In RNA we have ribose, but in DNA we have 2-deoxyribose. So here you see that carbohydrate is being used to form a molecule which serves to carry information from one generation to another. So quite a variety of functions these carbohydrate molecules can show. So what are these carbohydrates? So initially people thought that carbohydrates were hydrates of carbon. What do I mean by that? Is they can be thought of as a lattice of carbon and water molecules between these lattice. So you have carbon atoms and water molecules fitted inside these this lattice somehow. So these are carbon atoms basically and water molecules. This way people thought that carbohydrates could be just carbon atoms and water molecules because their formulas were very much like that, because glucose has a chemical formula C6H12O6, and one can see that it can be written as C, 6 carbon atoms and 6 water molecules. A bunch of 6 carbon atoms and a bunch with 6 water molecules will make up this formula. Wow, interesting. Another one, sucrose, if you see, this is C12H22O11. So it can be thought of as 12 carbon atoms and 11 H2O molecules. But it turned out after research that it is not like that. Carbohydrates are not hydrates of carbon, but the name continues. The word carbohydrate is still being used. What are these carbohydrates? So they can be defined as optically active polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones. So they are either aldehydes or ketones with a lot of acid group, alcohol groups attached to them, or they can also be very complicated molecules which can break down into these polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones. And they normally they are optically active. I can, but there's one example which is not optically active, as we will explore in the upcoming videos. But yeah, carbohydrates may be defined as polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones, or the compounds which produce such units on hydrolysis. So you need to understand this first, that carbohydrates are classified as monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. These monosaccharides are the molecules which are called polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones. So these monosaccharides are either polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones. We need to use a smaller word for them, so we can use aldoses and ketoses. Aldoses for polyhydroxyaldehydes and ketoses for polyhydroxyketones. And an example, of course, as you can see, this glucose molecule here, we I haven't shown this in with like complete three-dimensional orientation, just the structure. In the structure you can see this is an aldehyde group here, and 1 2 3 4 5 alcohol groups, polyhydroxyaldehyde, and aldose and ketose. You can see a ketone group. Fructose is a ketose, and just the structure I'm showing here. And this is, you can see this is a ketone group here, and then you have five, yeah, 1 2 3 4 5 alcohol groups. So polyhydroxyketone or ketose. And later on we will see, we can also call it aldohexose because it has 6 carbons, and this can also be seen as a ketohexose because it has 6 carbons. But let's keep it simple first. Aldoses and ketoses. Monosaccharides are either aldoses or ketoses, and then we get to the oligosaccharides. Then we can join a few of these units together and release water. So the first example here is sucrose. Sucrose is made up of a glucose unit and a fructose unit. I will go into the structural details in the upcoming videos, trying to keep it a little bit simple here. So just glucose and fructose units, and one water is removed in this process, and you get a sucrose molecule. So you see these are oligosaccharides. So if you add water, then these molecules can be generated. If you add H2O to sucrose and it undergoes hydrolysis, and it can produce an aldose and a ketose, basically monosaccharides. So monosaccharides are the most important class of carbohydrates. If you understand their structures, then you can make up oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. In polysaccharides, as the name suggests, a lot of monosaccharides unit will be joined together, and a lot of water will be released, of course. And the example which I gave in the first slide, cellulose, and the other one also starch, both of them were polysaccharides, and both of them were made up of glucose units. But why are they different? We will get to know it very soon in upcoming videos. Aldoses and ketosis, we need to understand that in the next video. Thank you very much.